Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Ultimate Potential, a mental health podcast. I'm Tony.
And I'm Craig.
And today we have another wonderful guest. We have Mr. Desmond Lomax. Desmond, do you like to go by Desi? I'd imagine most people call you Desi.
Yeah. Most people call me Desi.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how we know you. That's how we'll call you on this podcast. So.
And Desi and I and us, we go way back, right?
Yep.
25 years, maybe.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've watched with interest as Desi's career has taken different twists and turns, and here he is now, a very, very talented man, a talented clinician, certified mental health counselor. But Desi, why don't I turn a little bit of time over to you? Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, professionally, personally, anything you'd like to share?
Well, I started as a wee lad at Telos many moons ago. Love it. So to be, I'm a licensed clinical therapist. Currently, just working in private practice. I work for a company called Withy Consulting, where we do relational coaching and relational training. We build a lot of bridges in organizations to kind of help them expand their connectivity, thus expanding the output of their organization. So part-time therapist, part-time senior consultant. Before then, I worked in a prison for many moons, and I was working in the prison when I went back to grad school and started doing a part-time internship at Telos. And I got to say, you folks taught me how to find the blend between loving a client and serving a client. I was just blown away by the deep relationships you folks had at Telos, and you guys know me. Like, I'm a deep relationship type of person,
Yes,
but
indeed.
how to be a really good therapist and care is what I learned from Telos, and it's something that I've carried with me. So just want to publicly put that out there. But yeah, it's, I've been through a lot of different experiences. Like today, we're going to talk about loss, and that's one of the key factors. I lost a child to a mental health battle about 6.5 years ago, and that has changed me drastically. And I know we're going to speak about that today, but for the most part, that's my background.
Thanks.
Desi, it was, every day when I would see you at work way back when, you just bring a smile to my face, and memories are flooding back, but it's been really fun to watch you, develop, right? And your reputation grow, and your influence from university settings all the way, around to local communities. But this passion that we have collectively, right? We started Telos. Our mission really is to save lives. And for the clientele that we deal with, first and foremost on almost every parent's mind is this fear of losing a child, right? And so we dedicate our lives to this, and then in the community, in coaching, in service, church, you name it, wherever we go, it's like we become this the spokesman for, fighting against suicide, for trying to keep young people alive who are struggling with this mental health battle. And part of that is also, getting so close to people, whether it's family members like your son or my sister or, whoever's parent. It's kind of like a bonding and a knitting together. But, right. But in your situation, right, you've started your own podcast. You talk about this quite a bit. You're a therapist, and you're devoting your life to this. How important is it for you to find healing, and how is it that you go about doing that? And I'm not talking about like in general advice for others. I'm talking about for you personally.
You know what? That's a great question. First of all, shout out to all of us that have lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot
Wow.
of us out there,
Yeah.
you know, and we're a quiet group. And one of the things I wanted to do, because there was a lot of people who reached out to me after I lost my son to mental health. And just to give you a little background, freshman in college, 4.0 student, just had a rough run a few weeks, didn't say anything to anybody. We talked the day before he passed. He just sounded tired. And the next day I get a phone call, just a rough phone call. Um, and and it's amazing how your life up to that point feels pretty charmed, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
two boys, two girls, like beautiful family, great job, you know, great people. And then everything became uncertain. And there's a lot of people who I think um, who have kids who struggle with mental health that have to make space for that uncertainty. And I think therein lies the challenge, is that we have this belief that there's so much certainty in our world until there isn't.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and just trying to help, I try to help people recognize that there's uncertainty all along, but there's so much we can do as humans to still love and care and bring light to situations where there's so much darkness. And I think that's been my message in doing a podcast about losing my son. Was just really rooted in that. I just wanted to talk about, with my wife beside me, just like how it actually impacts you as a human, and
Yeah.
how that's okay. That's okay. Humans are meant to be impacted.
There's an element of grittiness and survival and moving on rather than being like, I guess, stuck forever as a victim of circumstance, right? And or you know, the broken heart syndrome, where it's so broken that you can't be functional. But you haven't done that, and neither do most people, interestingly enough,
Mm,
right? So you being open and talking and actually supporting others is part of your healing. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
mm. Yeah, yeah. And let me speak to that for a second. I am not fully developed, y'all. Anybody out there listen to this? I still cry. My son's birthday was yesterday.
Oh,
I
Oh.
cried a lot. I
yeah.
cried a lot. And so I want to be very clear with the audience. Um, a part of moving forward is making space for the fact that you loved and that it hurts when these things happen. And so I haven't, I can't say that that's been fully healed within me. More or less, I carry that along with me as a sign that as a human that chose to love, that sometimes there's heartache associated with that. Does that make sense?
It,
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 it, it sounds like you're saying when you choose to love, you also choose to open yourself to pain and loss. You
Yeah.
can't have
Hmm.
one without the other.
Hmm. Hmm.
Desi, I,
And yeah,
I
go
hear.
ahead, Craig.
This is how I interpreted what you just said, and granted, this is probably my own interpretation because this is the worldview that I've chosen to adopt. My mother passed away 27 years ago,
Mhm.
and it, you know, it was she was relatively young. I was still young, but it wasn't suicide or whatever. And she's older than me, and I was a kid.
Mhm.
But either way, what I've learned is that if I see healing as not hurting, it's almost like a sacrilege. Like I want to
Mhm.
embrace, you know, whether it's athletics, whether it's hard work, whether it's
Mhm.
relationships, I want to embrace the things that are painful and discomfort, not comfortable, because that's what brings meaning. That's what brings. So when I miss my mother now, 27 years later, I think of her so
Mhm.
often, like reminders all over my home, my life, right? And when I miss her, it hurts.
Mhm.
And instead of me saying, "Oh, I'm not healed yet," instead I say, "What a beautiful thing that I can hurt," right? That has meaning.
Yeah.
and it's almost like,
Yeah.
so I don't even know if the lack of uncertainty, the lack of emotional and even physical pain, the lack of not crying or not remembering, or like, if you have to get rid of all that stuff to heal, like, who wants to heal, you know?
Yes. Excellent point. And I was going to just lean into that. There's a lot of people who feel that by them progressing and healing, they'll somehow forget.
Yeah.
Mm.
And they never want to forget. And the reality is like you'll just these are things you carry that remind you that love is a beautiful thing, and there's no time to waste. That life is not infinite, at least with this body we currently have. Today is the opportunity to love, to share, to connect. I don't wait for tomorrow to say I love you anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't wait. I don't hesitate. I don't like. I get about people. Like you might be wearing a MAGA hat, and I'm not a big fan of MAGA. Let's keep it real. But I love you. I
Right.
love you. Like, and I give guys. I'm giving a real example.
Yeah.
That is a real example in today's society. I know people that aren't talking to family, that are talking to whatever. I'm not particularly fond of your hat, but I love you,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to wait till you pass away for me to realize that. And so I think there is a gift in loss that is so hard to bear, but but I'm a much better human. I don't want to go back to the older version of me
Right.
that thought there was so much certainty in my life that my kids would outlive me, and all of those things that I thought were just going to be. I now accept the fact that without that certainty, it gives me an opportunity to embrace the day-to-day encounters that I used to take for granted.
Desi, I have a question for you. So
Mhm.
we're striking at the heart of the fear of most parents. And I
Mhm.
would say that if you were to ask most parents, what is harder, what is scarier, that your child die from a car accident or that your child die by suicide, they would say that it's scarier and it's harder for their child to die by suicide. And
Mm.
I would imagine the reason being is because when your child dies by suicide, there's two things. Number one, there's the element of um, shame or concern that was I somehow a part of this? And then there's the
Mm.
could I have prevented this? With a car accident, you can't run out there. You realize you can't prevent that, right? If a drunk driver hits your
Mm.
child, but when it's suicide, it was a choice on the part of your child, and so it goes right to the heart of a parent. So my question is, what would you say to the parents, those who are dealing with loss, this specific kind of loss? What would you say to them about that issue?
You know what? That's a great question. I guess what I would say to them is, you're enough.
Hmm.
You're enough. The woulda, coulda, shouldas won't change anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you, as I realized as a father, my child knew that I loved him.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of children that grow up that don't know that. They don't know that. They go through life wishing that the people that God gave them to care for them would let them know that.
Hmm.
I have a lot of clients like that. So my child knew he was loved. He had his own personal challenges and demons that was too much for him. And I guess as a parent, I think woulda, coulda, shouldas. We all have them. But what I tell with parents is, you're enough. You've always been enough. And loss is a fuel. It's a fuel that you're going to use in a way to help you bring greater purpose to your life, or loss is a fuel that will burn you up inside until there's nothing left. But if you don't burn the fuel, it'll burn you. And so you have to be rooted in the fact that there's wonderful, beautiful things you bring to the world, and that in this challenge, it's time to start burning that fuel in a way to you know, create something greater than the disappointment, hurt, and loss that exists from just losing a beautiful human in your life.
It's powerful, and we see it both ways, don't we?
Love
We
that.
see
Hmm.
people who take that loss and they create foundations and they charities and they speak to others and they or maybe nothing so grand. Maybe it's just that they become the person in the friend group that comforts others and helps walk them through that a similar path. And then we see people who they stew in that loss and they bundle it up and they clamp the lid on and hold it on, and the pressure builds and builds and builds, and it
Mm.
really does eat them up. Yeah, it really
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. Hmm.
I,
Yeah.
I love
And
I
it's
love the
it's
analogy.
hard on, yeah, it's hard on marriages.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
um, oh man, I thought I was gonna have a lost child and be divorced within like a 6 month period, but me and my wife were able to really have some deep, meaningful conversations, and we grew stronger as a result of it. Far from perfect, but stronger. I guess one of the things I want to do is not create some idyllic view that I've reached the mountaintop of recovery from loss. I don't want
Right.
to, guys. I want you to know that there's some jagged edges on that mountain that I'm choosing to climb, and you're there with me.
Yeah.
And I think what I want people to hold is a deep understanding that despite loss, on the other side of loss, I should say, there is a deep understanding of your ability to impact people that I wasn't fully aware of, if that makes any sense. Like, I
Mm.
feel now that any person I encounter is an opportunity to let them know that they're loved. And I think if we did that in the world, oh my goodness, we'd be so much further ahead than we are right now.
Okay. Bring. We keep bringing this back. I think it's because it's so much on the forefront of our everyday work. Desi, I mean,
Mm.
our clientele, right? And we've had a young man with us for about a year, and for confidentiality, I can't use names, but has made some progress in some areas, but his choices, conscious, well thought out choices, are to continue down the path um, of destruction, basically,
Mm.
right? And he's acting that out here. So we have our little meeting and call it a goodness of fit, and sometimes we have to ask people to leave.
Mm.
And then it's getting on the phone, right, with parents and having them fly out and talk with us and cry with us, and where do you go? The hopelessness, right? Because they try everything, they find the best places, they put lots of resources and time and energy, years, to quote unquote try to save their kid's life. But then they're in a situation where almost all signs lead to the same road, right? So, what advice do you have to those parents where it's not sneaking up on them, right? It's not a surprise, but yet there are also like very few or no signs of hope on the horizon. What would you say to those families?
Oh man, you know what? First of all, oh, you are loved. It's such a hard situation, and so first thing I want to just honor that difficulty. The second thing is I remember when I was in grad school and I read a little bit from William Glasser. And William Glasser's weird. He's got some weird stuff, y'all. So I'm telling you right now, if you read it, there's some weird William Glasser stuff. But he created choice theory, and there's something that was kind of brilliant in what he said, and it stuck with me. He says, eventually kids know the truth. They know that no matter what you tell them, they can choose to do what they want.
Yeah,
So your only leverage is love. That's your only leverage.
yeah.
I have a 27-year-old, a 22-year-old, and a 20-year-old. What keeps them coming back to my house for Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever? It's
It's
love.
love.
They
Yeah.
have jobs. They can buy their own things. They can do it like I think sometimes when we see kids go down this level of self-destruction, we feel that we are responsible when our only responsibility is our real leverage in loving them. And it's in that love that we start to realize what our path and what their path really means.
That's
But usually my sadness is associated with the fact that I thought I had some type of control or certainty over something that I never did. Your only leverage is love. So just max that out.
yeah.
Just max it out. Just max out your capacity to love and support this person. Love looks very stern sometimes. It looks very forgiving sometimes. It looks very accepting sometimes. Love has a lot of looks, but most people, most especially parents, we know what love looks like and we know what it feels like. And we also know what control looks like and it feels like. And I would remove every sense of control from that teenager and make it very clear to them, okay, I'm drawing this line in the sand. What you will get from me this point forward is love. And it's going to look like this, and this. But in terms of you making choices in your life, they're yours to make. This destruction is yours to own. You're no longer going to destroy your life and look back at me and chuckle at the fact that I'm all torn up about it. I'm releasing that make believe thing that I thought I had all the time and using my real leverage, which is my capacity to simply love you. It's all I have. And that's all you're going to have moving forward.
Again, very deep, very solid. Have you read Brad Reedy's work, Heroic Parent, by chance?
No.
Yeah, it's very similar message. I think he's touched upon that, in many different ways. Just
Hmm.
realizing what power and influence we have as parents and what we don't.
Hmm.
I remember an experience I had when my son, this is maybe 5 years ago, I caught my son vaping, right? And it was like the third time.
Hmm.
And so I'm like, all right, give me the vape. So he gives me the vape, and we're in my bedroom talking. And remember where he's sitting and I'm sitting, and he's kind of tearful, and I'm giving him the lecture. And I take the vape and I throw it in my trash can and lecture him a little bit more, try to guilt him out, you know what this is doing to your mom, you know what this is doing to your lungs, this is against our value system, you're going to be grounded, on and on. And then it just occurred to me, like, he was knocking on the door of 18, like he was so close to turning 18. And at which point he would have been, moving out and getting an apartment with his friend. And so it just occurred to me that, like, he's just going to go out and buy another vape. So I go over to the trash can, I fish it out, and I go over to him and I'm like, son, this is yours. You bought this with your own money. I don't like that you have it, but I know that if I throw it away, all it's going to do is going to build resentment between you and me, and you're just going to go out and get another one. So my I have an illusion of control, but it's just an illusion. So here, you do what you want. And so he, was tearful and stood up and, Dad, I am quitting. I am quitting. And he went over and he threw it in the trash. He's like, it's in the trash and that's where it will stay. And I'm like, good for you, son. And he went out and he bought another vape. He did.
Yeah.
But it goes back to what you're saying, Desi, that, like, now he's 5 years older and he doesn't vape. He doesn't. He went through his phase, but he came to it on his own, and I loved him through it. Right now, that doesn't mean that my love made him become someone who doesn't vape.
Right.
It means that I loved him before, I loved him during, and I loved him after. And I think he's more likely to have a healthy life if he has a father that loves him, because I very easily could have chosen to ruin my relationship with him over that vape. I mean, there are parents out there that, their kid departs from their value system or leaves their faith or, chooses a lifestyle, sexuality that they don't agree with or whatever it is. And they detonate the entire relationship, and they lose their child. They lose their relationship with their child for 5, 10, 20 years. And for what, right? So this isn't me saying we should all be permissive and give our kids vapes. This is me
Mm-mm.
making the point that, and this is the terror, but the hard reality of parenting is that we don't have control. We simply don't have control. And so there is this element of letting go and letting God, right? And so when it comes back to loss and this fear and that I feel and that Craig feels, that so many parents feel every day of there, but for the grace of God go I. At the end of the day, these little people we brought into the world, they have agency and they have choices, right? And they build their own lives, and sometimes they take their own lives, and that isn't necessarily my fault or your fault, and it doesn't mean that my life has to end, right?
Right. And whether it's
Yeah. And
before or after, it also doesn't mean that you have to stop loving. My
yeah.
my own father, I was in charge of his estate, and he passed away almost 2 years ago in June. And I was very close to my father, a very loving and giving man. And he fought cancer, and he was pretty ill at the end of his life. But the one thing that he never gave up on was his he never forgave my sister, right, for her death, right, for her chosen death. and
Mm.
and he was right to his dying day. He just couldn't wrap his mind around it. And I always felt, of course, it's me being the therapist and the loving son and loving brother. It was hard for me to understand, but that the love continues. It's before, during, and after, right? And it defines you. And
Mm.
yeah, so I don't know if that's relevant to our story today, but it's definitely my,
Yeah.
my own personal experience. Is I watched a man for 20 years that had a hard time loving even after, you know. So,
Yeah.
which that was sad.
Yeah. And that's it's thank you for sharing that. I think I can, because I know that we're short on time, and so this is something I've learned, that being in your father's shoes,
Yeah,
probably the hardest thing that he had to come to realize was, as a father, you wish there was so much more you could have done. And it's so hurtful that you never got the opportunity to do it. It almost makes you enraged. It's like, there's a part of me that I'm just like, you just had to pick up the phone. We talked every day,
yeah,
I love you. I would have just came and got you. Just let me drive, the 3 hours down. And so there's a reality there I want to make peace with. But I also got to say, for those of you out there that are kind of like me, or in a situation like me, or you're afraid of what might happen, or you have to ask yourselves, are these constructs serving me, or are they destroying me? These are thoughts, these are constructs, these are beliefs that I have that are not allowing me to invoke the type of love that I want to invoke to this child that made a decision that impacted me deeply. And so we all have to go through that. It's your sister. You have to go through that. Like, what constructs do I have around the loss of my sister that don't serve me? They don't fill me with love. And to me, that's been the hardest work. It's a lifelong thing here, folks, because these waves are like the waves of the ocean. Like, sometimes they get really big, sometimes things are calm. And when the waves come and I feel like that rage or that anger, I have to ask myself, Desi, this doesn't serve you. So why are you holding on to it? There's so many constructs that don't serve us, that keep us from feeling that love and peace that's on the other side of all of these things. And we have to challenge that. We have to challenge that within ourselves. I've become a big proponent of learning to love yourself, the ugly, the rageful, unforgiving, you know, uh,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
the hurt version of yourself. That part of you needs love, and we often shun. that version of ourselves
That's
and expect everything to work out.
that's a deep concept too. You've got us wading deep, in deep
Yeah.
waters today.
Ooh,
Hey, Desi,
law. Yeah. Hmm.
this is the time in the podcast where we want to promote you, right?
Hmm.
We bring people on because, and I would say everyone who's ever been on our show, because we admire them and we admire their work or their impact on human lives. And so, of course, you're part of that list, of course, or you wouldn't be here. But we also want to give you time to just kind of plug yourself, right? Is there anything that you want to promote? Can you please give us contacts for your podcast or a book or anything else that you want? Maybe it's not even self promotion, but promoting any cause. What can you tell our listeners so that they can go and learn even more from you?
I have a podcast that has like 16 episodes on loss and living.
Okay.
It's called Loss, LOSS, and Living, and just Desmond Lomax, and I talk about loss. Me and my wife are starting a new podcast called All Things DNA, Desi and Allie, where we're going to talk about everything,
Okay.
health. She's a physical fitness trainer. I'm going to talk about relationships, and we're going to talk about politics, interfering with family, all the juicy stuff. We're just going to be talking about juicy stuff. We're going to start that up here in the next like few weeks, so just look out for that. And I'll send you something so you folks can get a link posted. But generally speaking, most of my stuff I do is on LinkedIn, and I just share a lot of stuff there. So you look at Desmond Lomax, that's there. If you ever just want to talk, if you ever like one of those people that like Desi, I just don't know what to feel anymore. Just you can find me on LinkedIn, send me a message. You can find me anywhere. I'm always good for a conversation. Life's precious, but like really, that's about it. Like I'm kind of low key, y'all. I don't. I do keynote speeches about wellness, and I do keynote, so basically, about 60% of my time I'm a therapist, 30% of my time I'm a senior consultant working with, Fortune 500 companies and the such, doing business development and relational work. And like 20% of the time I do keynote speaking. And so if you have an organization that wants to talk about this space and do it in a way that empowers people, because I don't like to leave people sad. I hope you feel empowered after this.
Yeah.
Really, I hope you're like, man, this is sad, but Desi's dropping bombs and I'm feeling it. I feel empowered. So yeah, my goal in life at this point, no matter what medium I am, whether it's individual therapy or keynote speaking or working with businesses, is to leave people empowered with a capacity and ability to just move forward maybe differently than what they thought they could move forward in. So yeah,
Well,
that's me.
Desi, thank you so much. We'll make sure we get some links down there in the show notes. Desi,
Mhm.
again, thank you so much for your time. You're so generous with your time and your vulnerability. Um, delicate things that we talk about sometimes on this podcast, and you're just an amazing example
Amen.
of opening yourself up so that others can learn and grow from the
Yeah.
path that you've walked.
And
Listeners,
let me
yeah,
let me just get one more thing here, and
okay.
I want to be sincere about this, y'all. These guys don't need my help, but I want to be very clear. I worked at a lot of different facilities. I worked for a lot of different people. I worked in a lot of residential and transitional work. I was the state director of all transition from everybody that came out of the prison. I've done a lot of cool things, and I can say confidently that I would send my children to Telos.
Oh, that's
Um,
kind of you.
That's very kind.
thank you, folks. For there was a time in my life where I had given up on what it was like to be a therapist, and because I was working in internships where it was just seems like I was just a cog. Thank you for humanizing me in those moments. Thank you for giving me opportunities to share my life with people and my skills and capacity with people. Thank you for creating a space for these wonderful humans that come into these facilities and just watch them change and grow and develop and be different. And I just want to give you guys a shout out for that, because not only did you give me an opportunity to help other people, you changed my life in the process. So thank you
Oh,
for
that's
that.
very sweet of you.
There's Desi preaching love, and there he is by example, giving
right.
love.
That's right.
Thank you, listeners. This is a wrap for another episode of Ultimate Potential, a mental health podcast. We hope you have a wonderful week, a wonderful month, and that you can take these things to heart. And in the meantime, remember, mental health matters. Thanks for listening. Your mental health journey is so important to us. We'd love your help spreading the word so we can reach as many people as possible. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe here on our social media or wherever you access your podcasts. Thanks.